Welcome back to the special edition of Talking Point. Now, Balaji, you talked earlier about issues and you think there are certain hot button issues and so on. What to you will be the main issues in this G?
Well, I think I'm not going to say something which is very surprising. I think people know what the issues are going to be. I think it is immigration, cost of living, you know. I think these are all the issues that have been there for a while, housing prices, you know. But I also would like, I mean, if I use the 2006 elections as a guide, you know, I would say that there may be issues that will just come up during the heat of the hustings. In the 2006, I think the 2006 we saw, especially in Aljunied, you know, nobody expected Aljunied to turn out the way it turned out. Yes. So I think during the heat of the hustings, there are issues that may come up which you will never know what they are. But I would also, just one other quick point, and that is, Kenneth mentioned change. You know, I was wondering what this change is all about. Is it, what kind of change is it that you are talking about? Is it, and you kind of a brief mention about what's happening in the Middle East. You know?
Yeah, I mean, genuine reform, political and economic. The enfranchisement or policies that benefit Singaporeans. We've mentioned the immigration issue, the foreign worker issue. The Reform Party wants us to focus on raising the real incomes of Singaporeans. Notably, since I suggested this, I noticed that the government has been adopting much of the same language. In fact, I noticed SM Go recently in one of his speeches seemed to be talking about almost exactly what I've been saying, that we need to focus on raising the productivity of our own workforce rather than relying upon cheap labour from abroad. So I suppose it's a testimony to how much effect the Reform Party has already had, despite us only being around 2 years.
Okay. I would just like to add, I just remembered one more, as far as issue is concerned. Yes. It is, I don't have the figures. I don't think any of us really have the figures, and that is what kind of an impact the number of new citizens who have become voters will have on the election result. Really, at this stage, it's very difficult to say because we have to decide first the number, how many are there, secondly, in which constituencies they are, so you will never know. But I somehow have this feel that they may have a bigger influence today than, let's say, in the 2006 elections.
Okay, what we have is the impact of a younger voter. We can speculate about that. I suspect they're all spread out everywhere anyway. But I do want to address that point which Kenneth raised, that when you talk about that the lingo has changed with the ruling party, and that you think it is because of what you all have been saying. And Rani, do you want to judge on that?
I was rather curious about the comment that SM Go may have changed his language on the basis that Workers' Party had put that before. I thought that back in the 70s we actually launched the productivity movement. We had the Productivity and Standards Board. That was something like a good 30 or more years ago, before the Reform Party came up with its recent statements. And every step along the line, it's been about productivity and innovation. And you remember last year's budget, 2009, when Tharman announced there would be this it was the innovation budget to encourage technology and the use of equipment, etc. So I'm afraid that, you know, I think that productivity is something that the PAP has advocated for a long time, decades ago.
But let's talk about cost of living and income inequality and so on, because these are issues which were raised recently in the budget, which will be debated in the next 2 weeks or so in Parliament. How far do you think the measures announced by the Finance Minister have gone down on the ground? Michael first, and then maybe I'll move on to you.
I think the measures have, on the individual, have had an impact, in the sense that the individual has found that he's benefited in terms of, for those that are in the lower income category, the special workfare bonus. You're looking at, certainly in my area, the increase in the KIFAS and the CFAC minimum limits for income that have increased. That will have a significant effect, particularly for young families in the lower income categories who are looking for childcare, kindergarten. I think in terms of the harder pills to swallow will be for the businesses in terms of increase in foreign worker levy. But that has to be seen in hand with the drive to increase productivity. You've got monetary incentives for increasing productivity in the Productivity Innovation Fund being boosted by, I think, another $1 billion, if I'm not wrong. And then you've got monetary disincentives in terms of the increase in foreign worker levy. This will be a hard pill to swallow for the businesses, particularly the SMEs. But it's got to be a long-term planning. It's the way forward. So these measures on the ground, and there are people, the individuals, I think, are happy in terms of the more money and of course the growth dividend as well. But the businesses, there will be some settlement time.
Something struck me. It was about rewarding workers to stay in work. That was a line that was somewhere in the budget. Workfare is about rewarding. I mean, some of the. What do you think, Workers' Party, Eric? What do you think about that?
I think we are for workfare and work in WIS. But what we feel is that there should be a bigger cash component, and we mentioned that several times, and we're glad that it's sort of responded to in this budget. But going forward, we still think a bigger cash component will be a better option, because we should focus WIS on its main purpose is to help the workers who are not paid well, below $1,700 or so. And the thing is that it should not be serving so many purposes like MediSave, forced savings for retirement, which is just focused on one, which is to give them more cash on their hands.
Okay, we're going to have a lot of debate and discussion in the next 2 weeks about what's in the budget. What have the initial reactions, what are some of the feedback that you have gotten, Kenneth, in the Workers' Party? Oh, sorry, in the Reform Party.
Yeah, please don't. I know, but my father was head of the Workers' Party for a long time. Yeah, but talking about issues, I mean, I agree with Meng Seng and Eric about the main issues. There are the failure of real wages to keep up with inflation, the high cost of housing, the competition with foreign workers, the disguised unemployment or underemployment of a lot of Singaporeans. And this budget did nothing to address them. As I pointed out in my response to the budget, actually there's smoke and mirrors with regard to the surpluses that we're accumulating, so it's not clear how much money there's actually being put away. We're not advocating spending the whole of it, but we need to have a debate. We need, the Reform Party wants universal medical insurance, healthcare, affordable housing. We want, instead of workfare, we prefer the combination of the minimum wage plus income support for families with children. I mean, if we're going to tackle our falling birth rate, I think we need to direct more benefits towards those who have children.
I was trying to get a sense of how you all think the announcements of the budget will affect the electorate and will affect strategies and issues when we are discussing when the polls actually called. So maybe
for my position, of course, giving out $600 to $800 is very attractive, but I think we have to convince the voters this is not the matter to be considered. What matters is whether the growth model that the ruling party has is sustainable. Growth at all costs. It is just input of labor to increase the GDP. Compared 10 years ago, the GDP actually grew by 95%. And why it is so that our income doesn't grow by 95%? Because it is due to the input of labor. And by doing so, you suppress wages, income disparity comes in. And they are trying to mitigate the problem of income disparity by using workfare. But is it sustainable in the long run? You cannot keep giving money, right? Workfare comes about because of 2008. There's a crisis. And I support it, right, back then. But you cannot keep using this methodology. It doesn't work. We have to solve the fundamental problems of whether we are going to use the same growth strategy, right?
Indrani, do you want to jump in on that?
I was just wondering whether we're actually talking about the same budget, because I actually thought this budget does a lot to address those issues. The budget has got two parts. One is a longer-term part, and then you've got the shorter-term part. The longer-term part to encourage growth, business, and innovation. And it's not growth at all costs. If it was growth at all costs, then we wouldn't be sort of having the slowdown on, the employment passes, on immigration, because we recognize that there was a feeling that perhaps there was the pace of immigration was too quick. But the cost of slowing the immigration means not enough labor, which then means that it's going to affect your productivity and your growth. So you then have to look at innovation, and you have to look at productivity and technology. So it's not a straightforward, thing. It's a complex equation. You've got to balance it. But just let me round up. The shorter term part is we have surplus to share. That part is important because there are very, very few countries in the world who can do it. I mean, you would imagine if Egypt had a growth and share budget, if Egypt had jobs credit, if Egypt had workfare, things may have been very different.
Let me respond to it, right?
One final point to everyone before we wrap, because we don't have much time left. Amazing.
All right. The most catching part of the whole budget is the ruling party wanted to grow the real income of everybody by 30% in the 10 years. We doubt they can do it because the finance minister says the growth for this decade is going to be slowed down 3 to 5% as compared to 4 to 6% last decade.
Hence productivity
right? But last decade, in spite of this higher growth, we cannot achieve even 5% for 20 percentile. So how are they going to do it?
John, let's hear a little bit more. Can I just a last wrap for you?
Yeah, and the point about 5% growth and 2% productivity, so 3% growth in the workforce with a declining native-born population means that they're going to still have to accept more and more foreign labour. So what is the real target for population growth? The sooner we focus on our own people and growing productivity of our own citizens and raising their income, the better.
All right, Eric.
Well, I agree with all the things he said, in the sense that productivity is the key. But it is a balancing act, that's what Indrani said. And my point to the government is that where were you? You were sleeping throughout until the last 2 years. Then you realized that you relied too much on foreign workers. Our median income is about 2008. That is not a first world median income if you think about it. Our GDP, I think it's like $40,000 US. How come we are so far away from that? So the key thing is a balance, and I think the fact that we exist, the opposition, and put the pressure on them, then they would respond. All right? If we didn't exist, I don't know how fast they'll respond. So it's good for all Singaporeans. One final point I'd like to make is that tell the people that if not for us being so strong and active, the opposition, do you think you'll get such a nice package?
Michael, last word to you.
I think the answer is that they would get such a nice package anyway. But the fact of the matter is that I think what we've forgotten here is we've not only had a drive to increase productivity, we've also had a drive to increase skill and level of skill of the workforce. And this is important in terms of raising real income and raising income levels. You can't compete with China and India. You need to raise the skill level of our workforce, and we've been consistently doing that even before the productivity level. And this has not been mentioned. So I think that if Mr. Goh gives us a chance, we will show that we can raise that income level.
But why do we spend only
sorry, we really have to wrap. We should continue this discussion offline. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This has been a truly interesting discussion, and we hope to hear more from all of you when the polls are called. The next general election is certainly one to look out for. There will be the largest number of post-65 generation voters. About a third of all eligible voters will be under the age of 35. There are also likely to be more contested seats, a guarantee of at least 9 opposition members post the polls in Parliament, and we'll all be looking out for which candidates have the potential to be the next Prime Minister of Singapore. For the close to 2.4 million eligible voters out there, how will you cast your ballot? Will you be focused on the short-term issues of costs, housing and transport, or will your eyes be trained on the long-term future of Singapore politics? Email us or post your views on your forum. Good night. Thank you all.
Thank you.